You all know that IBD is a chronic inflammation of the GI tract, and this basically occurs due to this. We don't know, how it occurs and about the real various steps. We have come a long, long way from those days when we attributed everything to stress and psychology and psychosocial and all that. Today we know much more, and yet we realize we know very little. And that is why we still can't treat all the cases properly, and that is why this topic is there. So you have a dysregulation of the host immune responses leading to chronic inflammation of the gut in a genetically susceptible individual. So there are three things. One is the person is genetically susceptible, then you have the environment, and then the immune system. It doesn't function in the proper appropriate way, and that is why what happens is in these people the gut reacts in an abnormal way to maybe its own commensals and to pathogens and that is why we have this problem. And you have basically this slide with two types, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. We have come a long, long way. I won't go into details of these slides actually. We have three types: ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease and indeterminate colitis. And of these, the ones which we commonly, many of you must be seeing, is ulcerative colitis. Crohn's is still extremely rare in Orissa, though it has become very common in other parts. We are a bit backward. So thanks to our backwardness, we have very few Crohn's cases. The more gradually, once we get liberated, we'll get more of civilization. We'll get more civilized. Crohn's will come to us. We aren't that civilized yet, but North India, South, they are having a lot of Crohn's disease now. I have seen. If you ask me how many Crohn's I have seen say about half a dozen Crohn's. That's all. Ulcerative colitis, in a day, every day we see patients of ulcerative colitis. When I was doing my MD medicine, I went to Bombay to attend a gastroenterology. That was the first gastroenterology national conference I attended, and I was a medicine student. And due to the influence of Dr. Gagan Mishra over me, I used to suspect ulcerative colitis in every odd case. Could it be? And that is how we had diagnosed around 6 cases during my MD in ulcerative colitis, 6 cases. And we thought 6 cases is a huge series and we could get it published, it's a big series. When I landed in Bombay to attend the conference, and suddenly I saw there was a symposium on ulcerative colitis. So I couldn't hold myself back. I just stood up and said, "Sir, I have a small question." And they looked up, yes. Is ulcerative colitis so common in India? Because we had seen 6 cases in maybe 2 years, and we thought that it's a huge number we have got put together. Is it so common that you are having a symposium on ulcerative IBD in India, ulcerative colitis in India? They laughed and said, yes, it is as common, but actually Indians are more susceptible to ulcerative colitis than the Western population. So, an Indian, once you go to America, our population have more number of ulcerative colitis than the Americans actually. So, we are not protected actually. So, the presentation is very simple. The patient presents with chronic blood and mucus diarrhea with abdominal pain, may have fever, and in addition can have other systemic involvement, joint involvement, ocular lesions and skin and oral cavity lesions. And as you all know, we have all been taught that once after 10 years of diagnosis of ulcerative colitis, the patients are at risk to develop carcinoma colon. This is a very old data that that due to you see 18% at 30 years. It's not that common actually. It's not that common. Diagnosis is by clinical history. That is very, very important. I mean, histology, even if you do histology, sometimes you may not be able to get the diagnosis, and history is of utmost importance. If you have a case where you have a relapsing and waxing and waning history of, say, maybe even a year or 6 months or so, whether or not your pathologist give you diagnosis of ulcerative colitis, if on endoscopy you suspect ulcerative colitis, it is ulcerative colitis. Yes, on histology there are certain features which are very telltale. So you have lab test, imaging, endoscopy, and we next come to why does it occur. As I mentioned earlier, as you know, we have been taught in every disease in our pathology classes. You have pro-inflammatory mediators, you have anti-inflammatory mediators, there is a balance, and once that balance is lost, whether it is peptic ulcer or whether it is inflammatory bowel disease. So you have greater pro-inflammatory mediators coming into play, and that is how you have also in inflammatory bowel disease. And why does it occur? This is a very simplified way of putting things, that you have two phases, the vascular phase, intestinal wall phase. The Kerala people have made it very, very simple. So you have a lymphocyte activation, their entry at the site. And then in the next phase you have activated lymphocytes which cause inflammation, and this leads to IBD. And now the more complex things. Basically what happens is the intestinal mucosa, in fact actually it's mentioned somewhere in the slide that you have more of lymphocytes. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. You may not have an absolute increase in the lymphocytes, right? But what happens is it reacts in an abnormal manner to the commensals, normal commensals, or sometimes pathogens, and once it triggers off, they get in, then the immune system takes over, both the cell-mediated immunity and the humoral immunity, both of them have a role. I'll cut short these ones. They are very colorful slides. I think you like them, the comic strips. Next, coming to the main thing, you all know that we had initially salazopyrin during our time. We didn't have ASA, but now you have different forms of 5-aminosalicylic acid, different delivery systems. But the problem is they are not as bad as salazopyrin as far as side effects are concerned, but yet you cannot get very good success rate in these patients. There is a gap. If you have severe ulcerative colitis, it will not work. It has two basic functions. One is induction of remission, and then other is maintenance. Once patient comes to you with blood and mucus diarrhea, you start treatment, and in a good number of cases you have remission. The patient has one stools, no blood, and then you have to continue it, maybe at a lower dosage, to keep that under remission, maintenance therapy. But you have side effects. Next you have corticosteroids. These are used basically for inducing remission in the acute stage, and we all know that corticosteroids have a lot of complications. Next you have methotrexate and anti-TNF alpha molecules. The problem with anti-TNF alpha molecules are that yes, they work. They are used rampantly in the big cities, metropolitan cities, in the corporate hospitals in the West. But unfortunately, people like me in SC Medical College, the patients we have, no one can afford. We can't. So there are a lot of unmet needs as far as treatment is concerned. And hence, people have been looking for some other option. A lot of new big molecules, those big names, just like Dr. Sahu showed, the same things are here also. Inflammation. So all those agents are being tried also in inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis. But I think some people, have taken interest in this simple thing. And of course now it has, every damn activity on earth which a medicine needs to have, this turmeric has it. And this is the active ingredient, curcumin. And as I mentioned, it has diverse properties: anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-proliferative, anti-angiogenic. It is used for cancer. It is used now. It is being tried for everything, not just for the lady using it for their skins or their faces, right? So these are the different levels where it works. One, it acts at this level, prevents activation of NF-kappa B, then it prevents translocation into the nucleus, and then finally it also prevents the release of inflammatory mediators. So basically it has multiple sites of action, and that is why people have tried it. And this is from the latest study which published only a few months ago. And what they found was, they picked up cases who were not responding to 5-ASA, and these patients, they used it as an add-on therapy. And what they found was, you can see the clinical remission at week 4, curcumin versus placebo. Curcumin 53.8% clinical remission and placebo only 0%. Then clinical response. Remission, response means improvement, and remission means completely there was remission. When they looked at achievement of clinical response, it was 65.3% for curcumin, haldi, and only 12.5% for placebo. That placebo means placebo plus 5-ASA. And endoscopic remission, 0% in placebo. Placebo means only 5-ASA, and 5-ASA plus turmeric or curcumin, 38%. So this is the major, and that is why, and this again for relapse, similar thing. For relapse also you have, it works very well in preventing relapse. So you have now data. Actually I was also surprised. Thanks to Kedla, I looked up at all this data and I could become aware of the details of the intricacies. Now these studies were using the curcumin in a raw manner. So what happens is the delivery it is not properly, it doesn't get absorbed, right? So for delivery system, a novel formulation has been made, self-microemulsifying drug delivery. I suspect these people, Kedla, might be next going to launch it, but before they launch it, I think they have to go through different phases of trials before they can launch it. But I don't know. In India, anything can happen. Make in India and whatever. Finish in India. These are, as I mentioned, Dr. S.P. Sahu had shown, all those names you can again see here. These have been tried. But the most important thing, I think, is curcumin, which is an eye-opener. And after that article, there was an editorial, again in clinical gastroenterology and hepatology. And this is the basic thing. In summary, what they mentioned, that they have tackled a very important therapeutic need in ulcerative colitis. A well-tolerated, inexpensive, this is very important for us, poor Indians, oral therapy in mild to moderate ulcerative colitis, resistant to mesalamine especially. Furthermore, they have studied a widely available agent that has at least some track record in UC. The results suggest that a large phase 2 to 3 study is warranted. First, however, a comparable placebo must be developed to ensure that participants and providers can truly remain blinded throughout the study. So I think basically I thought it was nice to introduce Haldi to you all, the very good, the beneficial. And it's there in the best journal. This is not an ordinary journal. This is one of the best journals in which it has got through. It's very difficult. We have failed in getting our article through in this journal, and this is one of the mouthpiece of the American Gastroenterology Association.